Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem of the United States.
For you, the Attorney General, Attorney Butterworth, would you please stand? And the Insurance Commissioner, Bill Nelson. And it is really my honor, Congresswoman Corrine Brown from the 3rd Congressional District, to bring up the, all right, those Wildcats, to bring up the senior senator from Florida, Bob Graham.
Thank you, friends. This is a wonderful day, but it's not as good a day as November the 5th is going to be when Bill Clinton and Al Gore are reelected. And friends, Florida is going to be one of the states that is going to reelect this fine man and his running mate and his family to continue to serve this nation. Friends, we do love you, Bill. Friends, the President has talked about giving every American a chance, not to guarantee success, but to guarantee that everybody gets their time at bat to prove what they can do. There's no place in which that has been more true than his commitment to see that we fundamentally reform the welfare system from one that has encouraged people to be dependent to a system that will encourage people to be independent. While I was governor, Bill Clinton was working on this as governor of Arkansas, and he's continued to work on it now as President of the United States, and he is succeeding. One of the people who has worked closely with the President to see that we have real reform here in our state, and you're going to be hearing from one of the success stories of that real reform, is our friend and great Governor Lawton Chiles. I want to thank all of you for what you have done to make it possible for Lawton Childs and Buddy McKay to give the kind of leadership to this state. And I want to thank, on behalf of all the thousands of people who are going to be better off because of your efforts, Lawton, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much, Senator. I'm glad to be here in Clinton country. I tell you, we are looking forward to that election day, because on election day, we're going to get a chance to say yes to Bill Clinton. And we're going to get a chance to say no to somebody else as well. Well, welfare as we know it has truly ended. And the president stood up to Dole and Gingrich. And he vetoed a bad welfare bill, and he made them put $4 billion more in that bill for child care. You can't expect a woman to leave her children and go to work if she's not going to get child care. And the president said no to that. Florida has been on the cutting edge. We know how to make welfare reform work. We've had pilot projects, and part of those have been in Volusia County. And we know that we've moved over 1,700 people from welfare to work. So we know that we can take these reforms statewide, and with the president's continuing help, we're going to be able to do that. Now, the president knows that child support enforcement is critical to having welfare reform. And because of that, he's been sending deadbeats a message: face up to your responsibility or face up to the consequences. Florida has been working hard on that, and over the last 4 years, we've had a 66% increase in child support collections in Florida. I'm delighted to say that the NFL teams, and especially Florida's National Football League teams, are helping encourage fathers to take the responsibility that they should. And a Jacksonville Jaguar lineman, Brian DeMarco's parents have been divorced. He knows how important it is for parents to support their kids. Brian is standing up as a leader in our Don't Drop the Ball campaign. Brian, how about standing up? Man, if Brian told me I better pay up, I would be paying up pretty dadgum quick. I also get the opportunity to introduce Anna Armstrong. Her dreams of becoming a nurse, a pediatric nurse in private practice one day, and the program that we have, the pilot program of moving people from welfare to work here in Volusia County, has been helping Ann to realize that dream, and I'm proud to introduce Ann Armstrong today. Ann, come up.
Thank you, Governor Childs. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't very long ago that I, Anna Armstrong, had little to look forward to in life. A victim of domestic violence, a single mother, there was no means for me to overcome the obstacles before me. Today, I am a welfare recipient, thankful for the assistance that has been afforded me. But more important is the pride and self-confidence I have gained by participating in the Family Transition Program. I look forward to the future now, and I see me, Anna Armstrong, a proud mother of my daughter Jade, graduating in December with honors from the Daytona Beach Community College's Associate Degree in Nursing program. I can look forward to becoming a registered nurse, earning $12 to $15 an hour at Halifax Medical Center, Ormond Memorial Hospital, or one of the many healthcare facilities in the area. I get excited when I think about my future prospects and the renewed, liberating lifestyle I am about to lead. For the first time in my life, I can feel secure in knowing that one day my dreams of becoming a nurse practitioner specializing in pediatrics will be a reality. With the knowledge and constructive support that I have received, I hope to empower the community and return the services that were offered to me. I'd like to acknowledge my parents for the endless struggles they endured while paying for me to take one college course per semester since 1991. I would also like to thank my brother, who helped me care for my daughter when I took classes at night. Today, I am able to attend college full-time. I receive a variety of supportive services thanks to the Family Transition Program and other agencies under the Partnership for Workforce Development. This is support that will soon help me gain economic independence, support that will enable me to become a productive, contributing member of my community. The education, training, and child care services available to me represent a stepping stone, not a way of life. These services have enabled me to make choices and decisions that have had a great influence on me and my family and will continue to do so in the future. First Lady Hillary Clinton said, "It takes a village." Indeed it does. I am living proof. A year ago, I had little hope of ever improving my quality of life. Today, I am here to tell you that when we have the desire, when we have the will, when we work together, all things are possible. Yes, Jade, all things are possible. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to our community the President of the United States, Mr. William Jefferson Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Daytona Beach. Good morning. It is great to be here. Thank you very much for turning out in such large numbers, for your enthusiasm. We've got the Seminoles and the Gators together on something. That's great. Thank you. Congratulations on your great seasons. Mayor Asher, I am delighted to be back in Daytona Beach, and I must say, I thought it was beautiful when I was here 4 years ago. We spent the night. We started out one of our bus trips here. But this beautiful downtown area is even more beautiful this year. Congratulations. I'm glad to be here. I want to thank the people who appeared on the pre-program before we came. Our congressional candidate George Stewart, Ted Duran, Janet Bokum, Suzanne Cosmas, who are running for the Janet Bolam, let me say that right, and Suzanne Cosmas, who are running for the legislature. I want to thank those who came with me here, Insurance Commissioner Bill Nelson and Attorney General Bob Butterworth. I want to thank your wonderful Congresswoman Corinne Brown, one of the most energetic people that I have ever worked with. Your great Senator Bob Graham, who served with me as governor and is one of the most intelligent and gifted and farsighted public servants I've ever worked with. Thank you, Bob Graham, for being here with me. And thank you, Governor Lawton Childs, for so many things, but for proving that we can work together to make Florida and America a better place in so many ways. Thank you, sir, for your leadership. I want to say more about the other two folks that are up here with me in a moment, but let me just say to Brian DeMarco, thank you, sir, for taking the time out of a different and busy career as a football player to stand up for the responsibility that all fathers have to pay child support for their children if they're not supporting them directly. That you could be doing a lot of other things with your time, and you've set a great role model, a great example for America, and I thank you and the other athletes who are doing that. And thank you, Anna Armstrong. Before I came out here, I met with Anna and 3 other young women who were working and educating themselves off of welfare so that they could succeed as parents and in the workforce. Lizette Rivera, Karen Watson, and Joyce Minert, along with Marcia Bush and Gerald Frisbee, who work with them. And I want to talk more about them in a moment, but I just wanted to thank them for the work they have done. I'd also like to thank the people who provided our music today, Time, the Mark Hodson Band, and the Bethune-Cookman College Gospel Choir and Concert Chorale. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I came here to Florida less than 2 weeks from the election which will elect the last president of the 20th century and the first president of the 21st century. It is your choice. You have to decide whether we're going to build a bridge to the future or try to build a bridge to the past. You have to decide whether to tell the American people they have to get into that future on their own, or whether that bridge is going to be big enough and wide enough for all of us to walk across together. You have to decide whether we're going to say to folks, you're on your own, or whether we're going to say, yes, it does take a village to raise our children and build our future. 4 years ago, I came to Daytona Beach amid a time of high unemployment, rising frustration, and increasing division. Compared to 4 years ago, we are better off and we are on the right track to that 21st century. The unemployment rate in Florida has dropped to an 8-year low. We have 10.5 million new jobs, a 15-year high in home ownership. We have declining crime rates for 4 years in a row, and almost 2 million people fewer on welfare than there were when I took the oath of office. We are moving in the right direction. Now it is for you to decide what path we will take to the 21st century. I want to ask all of you, there are a lot of young people in this audience today, and I thank you for coming. There are a lot of parents who brought their children here today and their grandchildren. I thank you for doing that. And I ask all of you, when you go home tonight, to take a little time in a quiet moment before you go to bed and see if you can answer this question. What do you want your country to look like when we start the 21st century? And what do you want your country to be like when your children are your age? For me, it is a simple but profound issue. And it's a question, as your president, I deal with every day. I know what I want for America. I want us to start that new century with the American dream alive and well for every person responsible enough to work for it. I want us to keep leading the world for peace and freedom and prosperity. And I want us, amidst all our diversity, to be coming together, not to be torn apart. I want us to have families where people can succeed in raising their children and at work. I want us to live in harmony with our natural environment. And I want us to live in harmony with each other. I do not want America to be torn apart by the racial, the religious, the ethnic, the tribal hatreds that are consuming so much of the rest of the world. That is what I want for America. Now you'll have to decide what path you want to take. Your vote will decide whether we balance the budget while we protect our obligations to the future through education and the environment, and protect our obligations to each other through Medicare and Medicaid, or whether we adopt a dangerous scheme that would increase the deficit, weaken the economy, and undermine the very values we seek to advance. Your vote will decide whether we build on the family and medical leave law and our efforts to protect our children from drugs and guns and gangs and tobacco, or turn back to a course that has failed in the past. Your vote will decide whether we build on our efforts so far successful to tell people no more can you lose your health insurance because somebody in your family has been sick or because you changed jobs. No more can a new mother and a newborn be kicked out of a hospital after 24 hours by an insurance company's offering. Your vote will decide whether we continue to add people to the ranks of health insured, whether we continue to help people, as I propose, by helping people when they're unemployed to keep their health insurance for several months more, or whether we stop that. Your vote will decide whether we can continue to put 100,000 police on the street, continue to follow those strategies which have brought the crime rate down for 4 years in a row until we bring it down 4 more years and everybody feels safe on our streets, in our schools, in our neighborhoods again. Your vote will decide. Your vote will decide whether we keep on cleaning up the environment. We have made the air pure, our drinking water and food safer. We've cleaned up more toxic waste dumps than any administration before. We have moved to save the Florida Everglades and other national precious possessions. Your vote will decide whether we can continue to do that or whether we will weaken our commitment to our common environment and our children's future. Your vote will decide whether we can continue to advance the cause of education. Yesterday, I was in South Florida at the Miami-Dade Community College, where I pointed out that we have just increased Pell Grants by the largest amount in 20 years. We made 10 million American students eligible for lower-cost college loans with better repayment terms, so you can't go broke repaying your loans. And your vote will decide which of 2 competing visions of education we adopt. My vision is an America in which every 8-year-old can read. We're going to mobilize 1 million volunteers to help people teach their children and to help teachers teach children to read, so that every 8-year-old in America in the year 2000 can pick up a book and say, I can read this all by myself. Your vote will decide whether the United States, for the first time in history, helps desperately overcrowded schools in substandard conditions to build new facilities adequate to the 21st century. The United States has never helped school districts and states do this. My plan will lower the interest rates to save money for taxpayers. If you make the efforts to meet the needs of your children, your vote will decide whether we do that. Your vote will decide whether we connect every classroom and every library and every school in America to that information superhighway, to the internet, to the World Wide Web, to give all of our children access to it. And to those of you who, like me, didn't grow up in the computer age and may not understand what that means, let me tell you in plain language. If we can hook up every classroom with good computers, good educational materials, trained teachers, and access to the internet, it means for the first time in the entire history of the United States, for the first time, every child in every school, public or private, rich, middle class, or poor, in every school will for the first time have access to the same world of information in the same time at the same level of quality. It will revolutionize opportunity in America. Your vote will decide. Your vote will decide whether finally we take a step we should have taken long ago and open the doors of college education to every single American who is willing to work and go. Under my plan, Americans will be able to deduct from their tax bill dollar for dollar the cost of college tuition for the first 2 years of community college after high school. I want to make at least 2 years of education after high school as universal in 4 years as a high school diploma is today. We need my medical team over here. Hold up your hand, folks. I bring a doctor with me wherever I go. The medical team over here, right here in front. And one more in the back. And let me just say this. I want to give a $10,000 tax deduction per year for the cost of any kind of college tuition at any level, undergraduate or graduate. Your vote will decide. Your vote will decide. Now, let me say your vote will also decide where we go on welfare reform. Weren't you proud of Anna Armstrong when she stood up here and talked about her future and what she's going to do? Folks, most people I've met on welfare over the last 20 years, and I've met a lot of them, are like Anna Armstrong. They don't want to be on welfare. They want to work. And they want their children to be able to look up to them and say what they do for a living. They want to have a good future. But we have been saddled for too long by a system that promotes dependence and undermines people's ability to live up to their dreams instead of one that promotes independence. I ran for office in 1992, and I told you here in Daytona that I would work to end welfare as we know it and to convert it to a system that promotes independence, good parenting, and successful work. And that's exactly what we're doing. We've moved almost 2 million people from welfare to work. In Florida alone, the welfare rolls have dropped 25% in the last 4 years, thanks to the leadership of Governor Childs and people like those with whom I met today. Brian DeMarco wants people to pay their child support. We launched an unprecedented crackdown on child support. We have used every resource available to the federal government, and today the national government is releasing its statistics. Compared to 4 years ago, child support collections are 50% higher, almost $4 billion more dollars for the children of America from their parents, not from the taxpayers. And again, Florida has done even better. Child support collections in Florida are up over 60% over 4 years ago. Last month, Governor Childs announced the program with the Miami Dolphins, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Jacksonville Jaguars called Don't Drop the Ball. Brian DeMarco is saying simply to the fathers of this country, if you don't live with your children, you still ought to help support them. Don't drop the ball. We're going to keep going until we raise child support more and more and more. We will move hundreds of thousands of people off welfare by making sure that the parents do what they ought to do, take responsibility for their children and their future. Thank you, Brian DeMarco. Thank you, Governor Childs. Thank you, Florida. Now, I signed a new welfare reform bill, and here is what it says. It says the national government will continue to guarantee to poor families health care and food for the children, and if they go to work, more for child care than ever. But within 2 years, people must move to turn that welfare check into a paycheck. Florida was one of the first 3 states, to be approved by the national government to go forward with welfare reform. Now, you have to decide, what are we going to do? It's fine to tell people they have to go to work, but there has to be work there for them, and education and training. The jobs have got to be there. If you want more stories like Anna Armstrong, we have a plan, not rhetoric, but a plan to work with the private sector, to work with states, to work with communities like Daytona Beach all over America to move at least 1 million more people from welfare to work in the next 4 years. Will you help us build that bridge to the future? So there it is. It's your choice. It's your decision. Your vote will decide, and whether you vote will decide. Don't let anybody in this community, don't let anyone you know anywhere in America believe that their vote doesn't make a difference. This is a different country than it was 4 years ago. Our country is up over 60% over 4 years ago. Last month, Governor Childs announced the program with the Miami Dolphins, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Jacksonville Jaguars called Don't Drop the Ball. Brian DeMarco is saying simply to the fathers of this country, if you don't live with your children, you still ought to help support them. Don't drop the ball. We're going to keep going until we raise child support more and more and more. We will move hundreds of thousands of people off welfare by making sure that the parents do what they ought to do, take responsibility for their children and their future. Thank you, Brian DeMarco. Thank you, Governor Childs. Thank you, Florida. Now, I signed a new welfare reform bill, and here is what it says. It says the national government will continue to guarantee to poor families health care and food for the children, and if they go to work, more for child care than ever. But within 2 years, people must move to turn that welfare check into a paycheck. Florida was one of the first 3 states, to be approved by the national government to go forward with welfare reform. Now, you have to decide, what are we going to do? It's fine to tell people they have to go to work, but there has to be work there for them, and education and training. The jobs have got to be there. If you want more stories like Anna Armstrong's, we have a plan, not rhetoric, but a plan to work with the private sector, to work with states, to work with communities like Daytona Beach all over America to move at least 1 million more people from welfare to work in the next 4 years. Will you help us build that bridge to the future? So there it is. It's your choice. It's your decision. Your vote will decide, and whether you vote will decide. Don't let anybody in this community, don't let anyone you know anywhere in America believe that their vote doesn't make a difference. This is a different country than it was 4 years ago. Our country is stronger than it was 4 years ago, and 4 years from now, on the builds that on that bridge we're all going to build together, we will go roaring into the 21st century with our best days ahead. Will you help us build that bridge? Thank you, and God bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
Something new.